you know the deal. We all make mistakes. And today, we're going to be taking a look at the top 5 most expensive construction mistakes that were ever made for the 3rd time. But before we go on, make sure to watch parts 1 and 2, of course, then come back to this video and enjoy. Also, make sure to like, share, subscribe with post notifications on so you don't miss out on any of our new stuff. Alright, and now that that's out of the way, let's get into the video. Nuclear power plant Olkiluoto. The need for electricity is met by nuclear energy in more than 30 nations worldwide. Nuclear power generates about 30% of Finland's electricity. But in 2005, the Finnish government felt that this wasn't enough. Building new nuclear reactors was necessary if they were going to cut back on the use of coal. Plans call for constructing a 3rd, highly effective unit at the Olkiluoto nuclear power plant in Urajoki, which would increase Finland's nuclear power output by over 60%. This reactor's initial 2 units are operational, and they've been generating electricity since the 1980s. The 3rd reactor, which started construction in 2005, was the first nuclear reactor built by a Western nation in 15 years. However, the project had construction delays from the very beginning. Although TVO, the company that owns the Olkiluoto power plant, first promised that the new reactor would open in 2010, and it's still under construction today. The major structures were finished ahead of schedule, but it's required years to install the nuclear components. This project's been in limbo for about 12 years and is over $8 billion over budget due to business disagreements, supply chain problems, and schedule delays. Experts assert that the lack of recent nuclear reactor construction is a contributing factor in the issue. In the 15 years between the building of Olkiluoto 3 and prior reactors, skilled constructors departed the industry. In addition, contractors lacked the rigor necessary to construct a safe nuclear power plant. Soon after it was laid, the concrete foundation was also discovered to be crooked, necessitating a rework. Some metal components of the reactors were incorrectly forged by the contractors, and welders on the project weren't aware of the best practices before work started. The project's planning was a problem, and it took years to resolve documentation and licensing issues because of the administrative issues related to nuclear power plants. Finally, TVO has committed that Olkiluoto 3 would begin producing power on a regular basis in February of 2022. The project began around $3 billion in cost, but it's gotten more expensive with each passing year. The final product is now expected to be $11 billion. That's almost 4 times the initial estimate, which is just as a result of the delays and problems. Number 4. Rail Tunnel Hallands. Sweden's rail infrastructure has had issues in 1975 when several stretches of the West Coast line were unable to manage the rising train traffic. A significant initiative to upgrade the entire line to double track was announced in order to improve the situation. The improvement of a single-track railway on Holland's Ridge, which was a major bottleneck for passenger trains traveling between Gothenburg, Sweden, and Copenhagen, also Denmark, was a crucial component of this project. As a result, work on the Hallands Tunnel started in 1992, with an anticipated opening 3 years later. However, issues started popping up practically right away. As soon as the building started, groundwater started to leak from the rock in far higher amounts than was anticipated. The rock was just too soft to support the extensive drilling operations. And the first drill that they tried to use even shattered. But conventional drilling produced greater water leaks. The original contractor had to transfer the project since these problems had rendered them bankrupt. But the performance of the new contractors wasn't any better. Without taking the necessary measures, they used a poisonous sealing compound during construction. As a result, nearby fish and cattle started dying, and project workers started becoming sick. Due to these problems, the corporation was charged with criminal offenses, and in 1997, the work was once more suspended. Only roughly 3 kilometers of the 8-kilometer tunnel has been dug up to this point. Finally, after 8 long years, construction has started once again. The project was made simpler by new drilling equipment and techniques, but drilling was delayed in regions with poor bedrock because it required more time to securely bore through these places. Hallands Tunnel's construction was finished in 2015, 23 years after it began. The project was initially expected to cost the Swedish government roughly $1 billion. But by the time it was finally completed in 2015, the total cost had increased tenfold to $10 billion. The Harmon Inn. In the middle of the Las Vegas Strip sits an urban development called City Center. It was launched in November of 2004 as a high-end living environment, including condominium homes, a shopping center, and all the necessities of everyday life. The Harmon Hotel, a 137-meter-tall mixed hotel and apartment high-rise with a rooftop pool overlooking the Strip, was a part of this self-contained city. With these intentions, work on the Harmon's construction got underway in 2007, costing an estimated $275 million. But it wasn't even halfway done when work was permanently stopped. Inspectors examined the building in 2008 and discovered serious structural issues. Construction was stopped after the 28th story due to improper installation of steel reinforcing that was supposed to sustain the 49 stories. Since condominiums were eliminated from the plans, people who had already paid purchases were to be refunded, and as a result of the design change, construction finally came to a complete stop. The Harmon's owners, MGM, covered the structure with reflecting glass and offered it for sale as advertising space. In 2011, there were rumors that the Harmon would not withstand an earthquake, and it might collapse because of structural issues. MGM responded by announcing the building's demolition. The skyscraper was dismantled floor by floor, rather than being imploded, because of the closeness of neighboring structures. This procedure started in June of 2014 and ended in 2015. The Harmon cost MGM more than $450 million to build, and its dismantling cost over $170 million. Due to the severe structural problems, it was never utilized or made accessible to the public, and the independent dismantling process took about a year to finish. Vdara Hotel. The Vdara Hotel, also known as the Death Ray Hotel, first caught people's attention in 2010. As you could see, that guests with very severe sunburns were beginning to leave the hotel after taking a dip in the swimming pool. The hotel's curved shape has the same effect that a magnifying glass has in the sunlight. The pool would then be heated up by the sun during the day, reaching a temperature of 42 degrees Celsius. Due to the painful sunburns, customers were complaining and then leaving. It's possible that the pool is already boiling, and they made the decision then to put substantial blue umbrellas next to the pool to address the issue and safeguard those using it. Even though people still complained that it's too hot, they added a film to the whole structure as an extra safety measure. They appear to have spent $14 million on the entire event. Tacoma Narrows Bridge. Let's take a little moment to do some time traveling, shall we? Back in the 1940s, construction of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge had just been completed. It connected Tacoma to the Kitsap Peninsula. It was the third longest suspension bridge in the world. However, a lot of problems were very easily seen on the bridge. The first problem arrived when, during the construction, the side of the bridge began to move vertically, which is why it got the nickname Galloping Gertie from the construction workers. So, some countermeasures were included, like hydraulic buffers, which were installed to reduce the sway of the bridge. Thinking that it was safe, the bridge was then opened to the public on July 1st of 1940. However, the swaying did not stop, and it got to a point that people were just skipping the bridge and taking a much longer route, coming to that area just to see the bridge swaying around. Finally, the worst had happened, and due to some very strong winds, the bridge started to sway. But this time it was really swaying, and within a few seconds, the bridge had collapsed. The good news is that nobody was injured. The engineers in charge of the bridge soon learned that their methods of making the bridge were really bad. With no support system to keep the bridge in place, it quickly became known as the most dramatic engineering failure in history. 10 years later, Washington opened a more refined version of the Tacoma Bridge with a web truss. And that version, 70 years later, is still standing. They even added a parallel bridge in 2007, with 4 lanes for those traveling east and 4 lanes for those west. In the end, after all these additions, the cost was just about $786 million. Did you guys enjoy the video? And if you did, you could maybe like and share and comment down below on which of the buildings you thought made the dumbest mistake. Also, don't forget to subscribe, post notifications, stuff I said earlier already. And until then, stay tuned, fellas.